talking about reports of this plan by the Trump administration, quote, to move 1 million Palestinians from Gaza to Libya. Tell us about that.
I'll tell you. So the US State Department is reportedly seeking to facilitate the transfer of 1 million civilians from Gaza to Libya in what is apparently supposed to be some kind of final solution, unfully intended, for the Palestinian problem. It seems like this empire just doesn't care about optics anymore. Because according to NBC News, this isn't just an idea that someone floated in a meeting, but an actual plan that has already been discussed with Libyan authorities. And they should take in a foreign population equivalent to about 14% of their population, and in return, they get over $30 billion worth of Libyan sovereign funds that were frozen during the 2011 regime change operation. Now, a State Department spokesperson has denied the reports and says that this plan wouldn't make sense. But the denial holds no water for one simple reason. President Trump himself openly proposed pretty much his exact solution a few weeks ago. Remember the debacle surrounding this video and the proposed Gaza Riviera plan? Yes, this is the empire's big genius solution. Outsource its problems and their consequences to Africa, that regular old punching bag. If you're from Africa or elsewhere in the global south, there are three important things that you need to know about this Gaza population transfer plan. The first is that it is only part of a wider strategy for the core of the empire to outsource its problems to the periphery, Africa, Asia, and Latin America. The Trump administration has reportedly sought deals with Angola, Eswatini, Benin, El Salvador, Equatorial Guinea, Libya, Rwanda, Honduras, Guatemala, Panama, among many others, to receive millions of third country deportees from the US. That is, the US wants to deport at least 2 million people to these countries, even though these people don't originally come from these countries. Essentially, in addition to subsidizing the inflated living standards in the imperial core, Africa and the rest of the global south are now also supposed to act as the empire's dustbin. After all, we're just shit countries, aren't we? And bear in mind, this is not a proposal, this is already happening, and the deportation flights are already in the air, according to Stephen Miller. The second thing you should know is that even according to the rules-based order that the empire itself put together, this mass dumping of the human consequences of the empire's colonial wars and neo-colonial extraction in Africa and the global south is completely illegal. Forcible transfer of civilian populations as part of an armed offensive against them is classified under international law as a crime against humanity and is punishable by the International Criminal Court. The problem is that the empire doesn't care about its own rules and it regularly shifts the goalposts at will in the middle of the game. So with regard to the ICC, for example, since issuing an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu for the crime of genocide, ICC prosecutor Karim Khan has been sanctioned by the US and no longer even has access to his bank accounts. Rules for thee, not for me. The third thing you should know is that the Libyan funds whose unfreezing is being dangled before the Libyan authorities as an inducement to become complicit in Israel's genocide in Gaza were seized from Libya's Sovereign Wealth Fund during the foreign instigated uprising in 2011. These funds were earmarked for the establishment of the African Central Bank, which was meant to serve as the basis for a new African currency, the African Investment Bank, and the African Monetary Fund, which was meant to take off in 2011 and occupy the space that the US-dominated IMF currently occupies in Africa. So instead of Libya using its sovereign funds to improve the economic circumstances of Africa, the empire instead plunged Libya into never-ending chaos, used the chaos as an excuse to seize the funds, and is now using those very funds as leverage to convince Libya to accept what can only result in more chaos and destabilization in the future. And if an agreement is reached, the empire has even specified that the funds can only be used for low-risk investments. Guess what that excludes? You guessed right. No African Central Bank and no African Monetary Fund for us. So make of that what you will.